5 months and 30 days on from the opening race of 2021. We head into the final day of the season, the 21st of November, Superbike's latest ever title decider. The Pirelli Indonesian round, held on 4 occasions between 1994 and 1997 at the Sentul International Circuit just outside the capital of Jakarta, has a new venue for a new generation. Construction of the 4.3-kilometre Mandalika International Circuit only started in August of last year, and it was inaugurated by President Joko Widodo just 7 days ago. It boasts 17 corners, the majority right-handers. The first at the end of a 507-metre start-finish straight has been one of 3 main overtaking hotspots in the 2 other classes that have raced here so far. The Turn 10 pinch point has seen plenty of action in the Asia Talent Cup in particular, but it's the penultimate corner that provides the longest braking zone, 6.5 seconds on the brakes into the circuit's slowest corner. Elsewhere far faster, Toprak Razgatlioglu averaging 166 kilometres per hour in a 93-second lap yesterday. Monsoon weather here yesterday afternoon left water ankle-deep, conditions not rideable, let alone raceable. So 20 hours on from the scheduled start time, we go again for race 1 of the Pirelli Indonesian round. That postponement has forced the cancellation of the Superpole race, and a daunting task for Jonathan Rea has become an ominous one. 12 points is the most ever made up over a 2-race season finale. Rea trails Toprak Razgatlioglu by 30. Steve English alongside me, 2 5th places in 2 races today, or a 2nd place here this morning will be enough for Razgatlioglu to become the 2021 world champion.
Yeah, the 2nd place will give him the title on the countback of feature-length race victories, and obviously for Toprak, that has to be the focus. But the one thing we've seen all the way through this weekend's action, all the way through this season, is Toprak just wants to win in style. He wants to go out and win as many races as possible. It's going to be interesting to see what Yamaha have done this morning to try and talk him into taking a little bit of a conservative approach. It will go against Toprak's inner instincts, but let's wait and see what happens over 21 laps.
Well, they always say you need a little bit of luck to be world champion, and Toprak, I would suggest, is the main beneficiary of yesterday's postponement. Jonathan Rea would have taken a wet race as an opportunity to bank big points, plus the loss of the Superpole race as well. That reduces his window for gains, mathematically speaking, and Toprak's task has just got a little bit easier. Yesterday we said he needed 33 points from 3 races to become champion. Now he only needs 20 points from 2.
Yeah, the one thing for Toprak is he's been the rider that's had the bad luck through the course of this season. He's had mechanical issues. He hasn't put a foot wrong on track all the way through this season. Even in practice and qualifying, in all the races, he's been faultless, and that's why he's in that championship leading position. Jonathan Rea, on the other hand, his misfortune has been, unfortunately for Jonathan, a lot of his own doing with crashes in races.
Weather was the talking point here yesterday afternoon. It has been overnight and this morning.
Yeah, the weather has been the big talking point. Obviously, after yesterday's monsoon, everyone's looking to the skies at all times. Walking over to the commentary box about 5 minutes ago, it was raining in the paddock, but as you can see from these pictures with Toprak, Keenan Sofoglu and Phil Marin in pit lane, it's not raining any longer. So all the riders, all the teams, they've got some decisions to make.
What a season it has been for Toprak Razgatlioglu, who trailed by 35 points after Estoril, again by 37 after Assen, and each time he's responded emphatically to recover the lead. For the last 3 rounds, it's been Rea behind in the points and chasing.
Yeah, Rea's been doing the chasing, and for Toprak, he's looked cool and calm all the way through this season. The battle between these 2 riders this year has been fierce on track. The championship points has been one thing, but all the way through the season, they've been bar to bar. They've been putting tyres on one another. They've really attacked each other. If you think back to the Catalan Superpole race, that was an amazing race between Razgatlioglu and Rea. You think back to Navarro and lots of other races all the way through this season. It's been a battle on track unlike any I've seen.
Jonathan Rea has never trailed into the last round in any of his 6 championship winning seasons so far. In 4 of those 6, he'd sealed the deal with 2 rounds to spare. Uncharted territory, as I say, for Jonathan Rea, and indeed, as you've just said, for Superbikes as a whole. This really has been an incredible season.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable all the way through this year. If you think back to the battles we've seen between Razgatlioglu, Rea and Scott Redding as well, we've seen some fantastic racing from all of those guys. We've seen a lot of respect from each of them on the racetrack. Obviously enough between Rea and Razgatlioglu. I think both of them have understood they race in very similar ways. If there's half a gap, you're taking it. Scott Redding, it's taken him a bit of time to adjust and adapt to that style, over the Argentine round. We did see Scott Redding, though, willing to put those battles and those overtaking moves on riders as well.
Yes, and he effectively acts as the spoiler over the course of this weekend. He can make points differences bigger or smaller depending on which position he finishes. Redding no longer a championship challenger. A race 1 fall from pole position in Argentina saw to that, but realistically his hopes were dented frankly much earlier on in the season. Had he matched Toprak at Donington Park in Manicourt, he'd actually be the championship leader now. Those 2 rounds proving costly for him.
Yeah, and if you think back to Donington, was one of those real costly rounds. We've seen it from Scott over the course of this year. The inconsistencies for the Ducati have come to the fore. When that bike is working well, it's still arguably the best package on the grid. That's why so much the paddock are worried about Alvaro Bautista being back on that bike next year.
And we catch up with Bautista just at the right moment, almost as if you planned that, Steve. Alvaro Bautista in what is his final weekend on board Honda machinery, and I suspect that he will be relieved about that as much as anything. Bautista, though, Honda have looked decent here so far in the build-up.
Yeah, Honda's made progress through the course this year. It's been a very tough season for them, but with Bautista, they've had a couple of podiums. With Leon Haslam, they're front row stars. They've made progress, just not quite enough to keep the likes of Alvaro Bautista on that bike. Easy to understand why Alvaro wants to be back in the Ducati, but what's going to be interesting for next year is to see how that team adapts to 2 young rookie riders. A real change in philosophy for Honda next season.
Yes, Iker Lecuona will be on board that Honda machinery along with Xavi Vierge for the 2022 campaign, but the focus really on rounding out 2021. We've got the World Championship to settle, we've got the Manufacturers Championship to settle over the 2 races now here today. We've also got to determine the Independent Riders Award here over the course of today. 14 points for this man, Garrett Gerloff, to defend against Axel Bassani. Steve, at one stage that gap was 54 points. GRT Yamaha already guaranteed the Independent Teams Award, one of a pair of 2 bike entries, and Gerloff their top scorer.
Yeah, season of 2 halves for Garrett Gerloff, but good to see him finishing the season strong. He's had good pace at different times over the last few rounds, especially at the end of races, so hopefully in today's running we're able to see the Garrett Gerloff to the fore that we saw in the early rounds this season. He's a fast rider, he's very talented, warranted the jump into a MotoGP bike earlier in the season at Assen as well for the Dutch TT, but certainly from that point onwards it has been a much more difficult season for Gerloff. The talent's all there. Hopefully this is the beginning of that return to form for Gerloff. It's a big winter for him.
Stunning setting here in Lombok. The overhead pictures prove that.
Yeah, unbelievable. This is unlike anywhere we've been for a very long time. First time we're in Indonesia since the late 90s, and it's great to have the racetrack right down beside the beach. There's a couple of corners here down to turn 10. You actually look straight out over the ocean here as well. It's a real beautiful place for a racetrack.
Just 30 points over 35 races have separated the top 2 in the 2021 World Championship. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, 28 podiums, 3 retirements as well apiece. Absolutely nothing to choose between these 2 men. But as you said previously, Steve, 13 wins to 11 in favour of Toprak Razgatlioglu, and more importantly, 11 to 5 in feature-length races. That means if we do get a tie on points, count back would give the title to Razgatlioglu. At the moment, everything suggests that this title is Razgatlioglu's to lose.
Yeah, it really is, and there's a lot of pressure on Toprak to get across the line. That's where it's been interesting to go down into the Yamaha pit box at times this weekend. There's been some nervous faces, there's been tension down there. All Toprak's done is try and relieve that tension. He's out there making jokes, he's just playing up to the camera, he's doing all the things that he will try to do to make sure that the team don't feel that pressure. Toprak wants to get this championship done as much as anyone else within Yamaha. He also knows that he's going to get plenty of more opportunities in all likelihood to win world championships, but you want to get it done now, get that monkey off your back.
It's also worth mentioning that as a result of the cancellation of the Superpole race, the grid positions will now be the same for both feature-length races, which again works in Toprak's favour after he secured a 3rd pole position in 4 rounds here yesterday.
Yeah, it works in Toprak's favour to have that. Obviously enough what we've seen over the course of this season is Toprak's always been able to keep himself at the front of the field, even in the Superpole races, qualify well for race 2, but it is a much simpler race day for Toprak today compared to what we could have had.
Yes, as we prepare to open pit lane and build up to the race here this morning. Unfortunately, we are without both Alex Lowes and Leon Haslam for Sunday here at the Indonesian round. Lowes suffering further damage to his injured shoulder in what was a startling FP3 crash, and Leon Haslam failing in his bid to return following surgery between late season flyaways.
Yeah, I had a quick chat with Lowe's yesterday just about that injury, and shame for him, as he said, it seems that almost every time he's fallen this season he's picked up another knock, and he's had plenty of them all the way through this year, and that tends to be the way it works. That momentum builds in a negative way, and all of these riders, they're always racing with some sort of a knock, but once you've actually got an injury that forces riders to sit out, and we've seen that for Lowe's different times this season, it really does just show how serious it can be.
Real shame for Leon Haslam in particular. We know Alex Lowes is back with KRT for next season, and in his comments after it was announced that he wouldn't be able to continue this weekend, he was already turning his focus to next year and making sure that he's fully fit for winter testing and of course for the start of next season. For Leon Haslam, of course, it's a departure from Honda at the end of this campaign, more than likely a departure from the World SBK paddock as well, and one of the most experienced men in this category of all time. If that does turn out to be his final World SBK weekend, that would be a shame for him.
Yeah, he's going to be probably moving back to BSB on a Kawasaki, could potentially be in Endurance World Championship action as well, and that'll be interesting to see how that fits in with Kawasaki as well. Obviously Kawasaki with their Suzuka 8-hour program, that comes from the Kawasaki World SBK team. Be interesting to see if Haslam, a former rider for that team, is involved in that project in any way.
Number 15, Oliver Koenig, you just caught a glimpse of at the back of the shot, making his way around. A World Superbike debut for him this weekend, and he's made significant improvements over the course of the weekend, actually beginning to close down the back of the pack, as it were, having been a significant margin away in the very first free practice sessions. A massive step forward from Supersport 300, of course, to jump up to the Premier class in the World SBK paddock, and he's managed that with aplomb.
Yeah, and I have to say Oliver's done a really good job, because he's pretty much on the same sort of pace as what we saw from Lars Grasson for most of the year. So he's jumped onto a superbike and given a good account of himself, and we'll wait and see how the next couple of years transpire for him. Obviously racing in the 300 Championship this year full time. He has had some big bike experience in the Endurance World Championship, but we'll wait and see where he goes for next year.
Yes, only 0.6 of a second away from Tito Rabat in the Superpole session here yesterday. That's bad news for Rabat, frankly, but it does also show that Koenig is getting there or thereabouts on towards the tail of the field. 18 rider entry, so a little bit of attrition, and he could be a point scorer in his debut weekend as well. At the other end of his career is this man, Chaz Davies. It's a final weekend for him in the Superbike World Championship before retirement from the series. Go 11 have already announced Philip Ertl as the man who will replace him in 2022, but a long and illustrious career as far as Chaz Davies is concerned.
Yeah, Chaz tweeted earlier in the week, 27 years since he started his racing career back in Wales, so it's been a long road for him, and I think it's easy to forget that it's not just the time you spend in World Championship action, it's the time to get to that point as well, and Davis has put in the hard yards. He's going to have earned the beer tonight for a really successful career, and what we've seen from him all the way through in World SBK is that he's one of the top riders. He's just unfortunate that his years at the top also coincide with Jonathan Ray's years at the top as well, because Chaz could easily have picked up a World Championship or two to go with his Supersport World crown.
So what are the chances of Toprak Razgatlioglu claiming the title with a race to spare? Well, you'd have to say good. A top two finish would do it, as I said previously, and Toprak has finished inside the top two in 60% of races in 2021. It is the second consecutive season that we've gone down to a last round decider. Last season, though, Jonathan Ray only needed 3 points from the final round to seal the title. This season, you fancy he needs a miracle.
Yeah, and for Ray, the miracle might come in the form of a little bit of rain in the next 15 minutes as well. We did have a few spits of rain around about 20 minutes ago here in Indonesia, so we'll wait and see if that changes at all. It did get very bright momentarily. Now it's gotten a little bit darker. The clouds starting to come in again. We're going to be keeping our eyes on the skies.
We said it multiple times before this weekend even got underway. The only way that Jonathan Ray could make up that kind of points margin, 30 points, was if misfortune befell Toprak, or if we had weather conditions that favoured Ray more than the current series leader.
Yeah, and I think a few spots of rain could bring in that little bit of randomness to the proceedings. Obviously enough, you'd expect Toprak to be really strong in dry conditions. But speaking to the riders after the morning warm-up session, Garrett Gerloff said that if you were offline at all during the morning warm-up session, there was absolutely no grip out there. So that's going to be one of the key things to, if you're able to try and make some moves, you're not going to be able to venture too far off the racing line.
History, though, is against Jonathan Ray. The Superbike points leader has only changed at the final round on 6 occasions during this championship's history. The largest margin made up ever has been 12 points by Sylvain Guintoli back in 2014. So Ray will have to make more history if he's to become world champion again this